Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're ready to get started. I'd like to welcome you. Thanks for attending our webinar here today with Maxient and RealResponse. I'm Aaron Hark, the co-owner and chief software architect at Maxient. Happy to be with you for a little bit this afternoon. Also happy to be sharing the presenter role with some colleagues and friends, at least a couple of whom I've known for the better part of 20 years now, which is pretty cool. We'll get to introductions in just a moment, but first I'd like to give a brief outline of what we're hoping to cover today. First thing is going to be an overview of the Stop Campus Hazing Act and what it requires of you. Next thing, we're going to hear from two institutions who are with us on how they're meeting transparency and reporting expectations in this regard. And then third, we're going to explore how technology from Maxient and RealResponse supports both compliance with the law and hazing prevention in a broader sense. If you have questions throughout the presentation today, we'd like you to use the Q&A function in Zoom. I know that there's a couple different ways to raise questions in these presentations. This one in particular will be helpful in terms of allowing our folks on this to streamline them and make sure to get those questions in front of us while we're presenting. So please use that Q&A function. Let's go ahead and get started with introductions of our speakers and kind of go around the screen. We'll start with Erica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Woodley, and I am the Associate Vice President and Dean of Students at Tulane in Louisiana. I feel like I have been at Tulane for 50,000 years, but it's actually only been 23. And 20 of those I've known Aaron Hark.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. It's good to see you. Up next, Todd.
Hello, everybody. I'm Todd Borst. I'm the Director of Student Conduct here at the University of Alabama. I've been at the University of Alabama for almost 28 years, and I've probably known Aaron quite a few of those years, most of them. So
Yeah,
glad to be here.
both these folks have been with us for a long time, which is pretty cool with Maxient. We'll go to my colleague from Maxient, Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael Ginsberg, and I have been with Maxient for about 10 years now. Prior to that, I worked in higher education for 21 years, 19 of those at Bowling Green State University, doing, unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of hazing investigations with my colleagues in campus activities as well.
And last but not least, David.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Chadwick. I'm the founder of RealResponse. I'm in my first decade with the company, so I got a little bit of time to catch up to Erica, Aaron, and Todd, but pleasure to be here. In case you're not familiar with RealResponse, our platform is utilized by a number of institutions to really solve two challenges. Number one, making it easier for students and others to be able to come forward if they have a concern. Michael just alluded to hazing. That's a common one that we see. But secondly, making it more efficient when investigating those claims as well, especially when running into the traditional roadblocks that anonymous reports can create. So excited to share more about our platform and how it can assist in the investigative efforts, especially around hazing.
Awesome. Well, let me give you a little refresher on the Stop Campus Hazing Act and why you're not too late if you haven't already taken steps to comply with it. So this act was signed into law back on December 23rd. The goal here is to combat hazing through increased awareness. And it established two new reporting requirements that are important for you. The first one is expanded Clery reporting. So this began back on January 1st, 2025. Reported incidents of hazing will now go in your annual security report. To be included, the issue must be a student organization, must have involved a student organization. But here's the kicker: anything with two or more students qualifies, regardless of whether your institution recognizes them as a student organization. And the same Clery geography applies that you use for all other aspects of the annual security report. That piece of the two new reporting requirements is the one we're not going to spend much time on today, at least from the Maxient side. We're going to focus more on the Campus Hazing Transparency Report, which is the other new requirement under the Act. The goal of the Transparency Report, as we abbreviate CHTR, is to report affirmative findings of hazing against recognized student organizations. It's not limited to Clery geography, so it could really happen anywhere as long as it involves one of your recognized student orgs. It's published to the institution's website, and that's pretty critical to what we're going to be showing you today. It's updated at least twice a year, and the first one was supposed to have been published no later than this past December 23rd. So that's a 1-year anniversary of the passage of the act. If you didn't publish it December 23rd, maybe you were getting last minute Christmas gifts or already off campus and this was something far away from your mind, it's not too late to quickly and easily get into compliance with this. And we'll come back to this later on, but everybody on this call knows firsthand how frustrating compliance can be, generally speaking, in higher ed. What I hope you emerge from this call with is that this one is easy. It's straightforward for you, and you've got the tools. If you're on this webinar already, you've got the tools to make that happen, and we're going to show you how. So the report that you publish, the CHTR, must include the name of the organization, but no personally identifiable information. It has to have a description of the violation for which they were found responsible. Were there alcohol or drugs involved? The findings and the sanctions will be listed there, along with several key dates that the report requires, including the date that the incident occurred, the date the investigation was initiated and ended when the findings were made, and the date that the notice of findings was provided to the organization. It's all laid out pretty cleanly. So what we're going to do with that as our background, I'd like to start by hearing directly from the campus leaders who are on the call with us today, who are navigating these requirements. And we'll start with Erica at Tulane.
Great, thanks. I would like to start by saying we've been with Maxient for a long time at Tulane, and I think that helps us in a lot of ways. One of the ways is that for someone who's super technologically challenged like myself, it's really easy to use. And so what we've been able to do over the last couple of decades is really create a culture of reporting that kind of centers around Maxient. And so this is very important. David will tell you when he first talked to me about RealResponse, I was like, we use Maxient. We're not changing anything about Maxient. And so, for us, I think that's been pretty central in terms of having a place where people can report all kinds of behavior, but specifically hazing. And so we had before that also a hotline that was, I think at one point, maybe it was used frequently, but over time really became kind of a nuisance, and we were able to sunset that recently. And so, I think if you asked 20 people on our campus how to report hazing, all 20 would probably say do a concerns report, which is actually Maxient. Students can report in person and also, to faculty staff. And I think that's partially, kind of the long game that you have to do is really make sure that folks understand how to get to Maxient or how to get to the concerns report if they need to let us know about something. And it works. I mean, I think we've been really happy with that. And I think I asked Aaron if he invited me to this webinar to show me all of the ways in which I wasn't actually using Maxient to its full potential. Because just sitting in here and preparing, there are a lot of things that I think struck me. And so I think you'll hear about some of those today, and I'll tell you about a couple that I think are important. Most of you probably have also state laws. So in Louisiana, we have the Caleb Wilson Act that we're also bound by. And one of the things, this is a really easy example, one of the things that this law requires is that we notify law enforcement of any hazing allegation. And so, the way we've been doing it, which I still think Maxient has been very helpful in this, is that when we get a report, we just forward it to the police and let them do with it kind of what they will. It occurred to me we could actually have a report type that did this automatically for us, where the person who gets the notifications was on the routing rules. I think Tulane, probably like many of you, wasn't able to add a position to manage all of these kind of pieces of compliance, similar to like a Clery coordinator or Title IX coordinator. That doesn't do it. We don't have it. And so it's really been being done on kind of the backs of people who are already, doing the work and who have full-time jobs. And so I think, my goal, and I think, I've learned a lot of things over the last week, but I think, the more places where you can automate things, the better. And you still need to have kind of a human eye. So for example, if we had a hazing report and someone chose something that wasn't that and reported hazing behavior, you still have to have someone who can go through that, but having kind of an automated system so that's really an outlier. So most of the time it just happens turnkey. I think your teams will probably thank you for that. And I think it ends up with a lot fewer things kind of slipping through the cracks and kind of human error. So one of the things I kind of want to show you all our hazing transparency report. I was saying it's not necessarily anything to write home about, but we decided with our report to not only include the reports, but also kind of some FAQs. and our training opportunities. Because again, in Louisiana, we're required to provide hazing training for everyone, and for students and student organizations, they're required to do an additional hour of training. And the idea is that the student organizations are actually responsible for tracking this. And what we found is that's really problematic and challenging. So we're trying to kind of work through all of that. And again, we're working through all of that without kind of having a dedicated person. So anytime and any place we can automate things, we're trying to do that. But you'll see this is kind of how we've laid ours out. And again, I don't think that there's anything super special about it, except that everything is in one place. And for us, that actually is and has been pretty helpful. And I think those are, yeah, those are my points. I'm going to turn it over now to Todd from the University of Alabama.
Thanks, Erica. I think for us, being a very large institution, over 40,000 students, and probably one of the largest Greek, or the largest Greek community in the country, and looked at things with hazing and having done this for 28 years as a fraternity and sorority advisor prior to coming over to conduct, where we're approaching our reporting, and that is kind of over the last couple of years, we've done a 360-degree turn, and basically looked at how we were investigating our hazing cases, how we were reporting those, and I kind of broke it down to a couple. There's, we have your anonymous reporting that we receive through our Text UAct, which is actually RealResponse. Text UAct is just our name here on campus, as well as individuals can call through our NavX, which is through our system office, or report online through there. And that's kind of those report options. We're new to RealResponse, and we've enjoyed having that because that gives us that actual in real time opportunity to speak with the reporter, and also have that reporter speak to somebody that's right here on campus that is very knowledgeable. Whereas the previous, you're dealing with a clearinghouse somewhere else and may not know the in and outs of the actual culture here or what the campus locations are. Our others is kind of, we look at the non-anonymous reporting, which we use a lot through Maxient, where any student can enter, or a staff member or a department can enter a student conduct incident report and report hazing there. We also use it. We have our own student organization incident reporting for hazing, because we value our organizations to do self-reporting, and work with them on that. And that's actually helped us a lot. And so that's helped us in our launch those investigations and so forth. And we're using these for quite a few different things. I mean, obviously, we've been ahead trying to, a couple of years ago, we launched our End Hazing website, and we had to fine tune our hazing transparency report with the new guidelines, and we launched it in December, and we've been updating it as recent as this morning, just so that we get to make sure that we're, as we finish up cases with the organizations, that we're putting that information up there and that. So, and we're using different types of forms and analytics, and that is how we handle our investigations. The days of sitting there and bringing in a whole new member pledge class and interviewing one by one and knowing we're going to get the same results by the time we interview the first person to the time we end up with the 60th person, because some of our pledge classes are extremely large. And so it does, we've used Qualtrics questionnaires where we've tailored that to the specific incident and shared through a QR code to our new member classes that we're invested of a chapter we're investigating. We may not get the exact answers that we want or that, but each one of these students is going to fill this out. It's going to be different, and that gives us an opportunity to maybe look into a particular statement, or something may just jolt us to look and ask a particular question. as well as looking now to use the campaign feature through RealResponse so that we can we can get out there and let students provide information through that, and as well as the good old-fashioned interviews and meeting with that. And we also encourage our organizations a lot to do their own self investigation alongside us, and so that we can compare notes in that. So kind of where we are with some things.
Hey, Todd, are you in a position to be able to show that the Alabama's Transparency Report or hazing site on your screen? If not, I think I can give out the URL. I think it's the End Hazing
Yes.
Student Life.
Yes, it is. Hold on, let me get there.
While Todd's bringing up, if anybody's curious out there, it's endhazing.sl for studentlife.ua.edu. Kind of brings together several of the things that that he's showing us about. And I know we'll go. Erica had something she wanted to come back to too in just a moment, which we'll do.
Let me get there. Sorry, it's trying. Come on,
sorry, I didn't mean to catch you off guard like that.
Oh, no, it's good. It's cool.
Yeah, just much like Erica showed hers, I think it's cool to be able to see the visual. Sometimes it's even the small stuff like the branded QR code I thought was kind of cool for UACT.
It's not. My screen is not doing something. So for some reason, my screen is not popping up. So let me get there. You're asking the almost the. Yeah. Let's see if that works. That work?
There we go. Yeah.
It was just there. But yeah, this is kind of our report, and then you can break it down by year, and then break it down by the organizations, in there. And so kind of breaks it down to the date reported and sanctions, well as findings.
Well, and even at the higher level, beyond that, y'all have the page about like join the effort to end hazing, and you've got your QR code, you've got your UACT texting, you've got your Maxient reporting, and then advice for parents and families to help their students too. It's nicely laid out.
Yeah, there you go. That's overall.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it gives you a way for reporting the anonymous reporting through UACT, our little code, and as well as advice for our student help, parents, and that. And so I think us moving over to we looked at our reporting, we've probably gotten several through RealResponse this year. We did a soft launch last spring, which really worked well. And we use it for, RealResponse is used not just for student organization and hazing, but quite a other areas on campus, from Title IX to students of concern, and academic students that want to report academic misconduct issues and that. So really kind of taken off, as well as, unfortunately, we get our students reporting noise complaints in the residence halls, and we're like, you can do that over here. So
we while you were talking, Tom, we had a question come in from one of our attendees. They said, just to be sure I heard correctly, when you actually hang on one second here, it looks like it disappeared on me. There we go. Just to be sure I heard correctly, when you have students self-report, how do you maintain confidentiality? Do they have access to notes from other students? I think several of our panelists were interested in addressing that.
So
go ahead.
What we tend to do is, most of our self-reports come from the organization, come from the president. It's what they've found in their preliminary or internal investigations, that then they're reporting, and that. And so anything that comes to us, we're going to protect that through confidentiality, and probably, whereas we'll say, witness 1, 2, 3, 4, not necessarily going to have, most of the time it's not reporting, self-reporting of an individual, but sometimes they will report to the incident of that an individual. But it's only when we are ready to move forward that we will, if they choose to go to a formal hearing, then we'll have to let them know that this is going to be disclosed, because you have a right to question your accuser. So,
David, did you want to chime in on that one too?
Sure. Yeah. Typically, what we see is when people are coming forward, they're looking for confidentiality, which in absence, and obviously I'm biased, in absence of a system like RealResponse, sometimes that's more challenging. So what we preach is give them a confidential way to come forward and really build trust through the process. So maybe someone's not ready to report yet, but they want to better understand what the process is going to look like after they do report, what would the ramifications be, et cetera. And oftentimes, as they build trust through that process of communicating with Erica's somebody real, I can look up on the website. Now I understand what's going to happen. They're more likely to come forward and understand the protections, as Todd just mentioned, that might be given to them, or any of the ramifications that might be a result of that as well. So I say all the time, technology is great, but if they don't trust people and understand how it's going to work, they're less likely to come forward. So that's the first step: is how do we build the relationship, and the technology will make that process easier.
And that was actually the part that I wanted to admit I didn't hit all my points. I forgot to talk about how at Tulane we use RealResponse. One of the things with law enforcement disclosures is when someone makes a report, you have to turn over the report. And so, we can say we can try to protect your privacy, but that may not be something that's shared throughout. So it became very important to us in order to not have, I would say hazing is already something that's underreported, and there's a chilling effect because people are worried about social ramifications already. And so, you don't want to do anything to add to that. And so at that point, it became very important to us to make it very easy for people to report hazing, and to report it in a way that we're getting good information. So, we allow anonymous reports of all kinds at Tulane through Maxient. And sometimes we get good information in anonymous reports, and other times you get just enough information to make you very nervous. And then, not having a mechanism to follow up with people is challenging. And so that's why we decided to work with RealResponse in that way. And I think, being able to tell students this can be step one. And sometimes, it's the only step. Sometimes you get information from that, and then you start the investigation, sort of similar to what Todd was talking about. But sometimes you are able to build trust and to get folks to come in and chat, and you learn a little bit more. And so I think that's a really important thing. In order to be able to say to folks, we're doing all we can to stop hazing, I think you really have to have an option like that allows for back and forth. Thanks.
Cool. Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit from how you gather that information regarding these incidents to how you report it out in compliance with the Act. So I'm going to go to my colleague, Michael Ginsberg, who's going to take us through Maxient's CHTR feature.
Thanks, Aaron. So let's start with how do you even get to the CHTR report? If you have access to it, you can hover over or click on the administrative tab in the left menu. If you see Manage CHTR, you have access to it. If you don't see that and you need access to it, a level 5 Maxient user can grant you that access on a user-by-user basis. So they would just go to Manage Users, they would go to the account they want to grant the access from, and then under General Privileges, we've got, can you access that report, the Campus Hazing Transparency Report? And I can. So I'm going to recommend when you go to this report the first time, you click on the administrative tab, for the reason that we have got a link to a help topic right underneath the Manage CHTR button. And there's some really great information, detailed information in there on both setting up the report and adding cases to the report. So to access it, we're just going to go ahead and click on that button. Got an explanation here at the top. Most importantly, at the top here is you're going to see a link that says once your report is active, it's accessible through this link. That is the link that you can give to your IT folks, whoever manage your web pages, to embed within your overall campus hazing Stop Hazing website so that anybody who visits that website can access that report. And I'll show that to you in one moment. Some real quick things here. First, under settings, which is the second tab here, make sure if you want to use this report, which we encourage you to do, it is set to active. You can choose the colors you want things. To me, some of the more important things here, apart from colors, are when did you last update this report? You define that date just by clicking on the date picker and choosing when that occurred. So I'm going to say I last did it Friday. The reason that date is important is below the preamble section, which we'll come back to, it says, when do you want to receive a reminder that your report needs to be updated? It gives you 10, 21, and 30 days. That message appears on your home screen based on the fact of when the date was last updated, and 6 months later, what's 10 days, 3 weeks, or a month before that. So that's really important. In the preamble, you can basically explain what the Stop Hazing Act is, maybe an institutional statement on your commitment to ending hazing, kind of like Erica and Todd had on their own websites, and have more information there as well. Also, you define the terms. So we saw on Erica and Todd's reports that they have these laid out by when did these things occur. So you get to define what the terms are that are going to be listed on the report. And I do want to highlight, because this came up yesterday or the day before, someone shared a concern, and I believe that person actually is on the webinar, or at least they were registered for the webinar, that based on the incident date and when the investigation date starts, there might be a disconnect to the public because it might be a long time. I think all of us can understand that that time is going to be, when does somebody choose to report something that may have occurred to them? Some are going to report it right away. Some may report it months later. So you might want to have a statement in understanding the report of what folks are seeing there, that each incident summary will start with the date that something was reported to you. So that way the public is seeing you weren't just sitting on something, it actually didn't come in until later on. So once you've done that, I'm going to show you real quickly. Let me show you what this report looks like. So this is what page ends up looking like. So Campus Hazing Transparency Report, when it was last updated, our brief, in my instance, very brief preamble, explanation of what they're seeing in the report. And then for each of our terms here, what did we have in terms of responsible findings for a hazing violation? If I click on that to expand it, we see information about this situation that occurred, including the dates that happened. So the question is, how does something get on this report? We're going to go to the first tab on the CHTR page, and we're going to look at our entries. To add a file to what you see on the report, you can start typing the name or the file ID number that you want to review and add to the report. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one for the marching band. I'm going to click Add for Review, and now I see it here as a draft. When it is in draft state, it is not visible to the public. So I'm going to show you in one sec how to publish that. But Todd mentioned he had to add 2 cases to his report this morning. Personally, that's what I would also do. When they're finalized and they're done, I would go ahead and add that to the published report. But if you want to add things as you go and then publish them all at that same new 6-month period, you can come in and edit those and change the draft status at that point to published. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. We're going to say this happened in this academic year. The description of the violations that they were found responsible for, it was a charge of hazing. This is pulled in from the charges that were added into the case. The sanctions are pulled in based upon the sanctions that were applied in the case as well, along with any details. The incident date is pulled in. I had already added an investigation and beginning and ended date. And then I'm going to say that the notice was provided to the organization on the 20th. In this instance, this was a case of, some of you may have heard something very similar. It was a situation where new members of a group were charged with finding a brick in the student union. The brick doesn't exist. It is meant to create, from the organization's perspective, team building and bonding, and there were no alcohol or drugs involved. So I'm going to change that to no. I can put that incident summary in there if I want to. I could add my reported date, which we'll say was 1/6/26, along with the details of the situation. We also give you the opportunity to provide internal notes. This might be a reminder to yourself of why something is on the report, or something that if somebody asks about it, you want to share. I simply click on update those settings, and then I go back to my page, and now under 25/26, the marching band is there. For those somebody had also recently asked about the dates being moved up to the top of the report, and I do want to mention that is coming relatively soon, that what you see here will start with all of the dates and then the descriptions, so that people can kind of get the quick information at the very beginning. And that is what I wanted to share with you all. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Yeah, we had one question in the chat, which I just answered in writing there, asking for a quick refresh on how to grant yourself access to the feature. Again, if you are a level 5 user, you can turn on the access for yourself or for anybody else under the administrative manage users section in Maxient. You go there, you select an account that you need to grant access to, scroll down to general privileges, and it's the second option right there that Michael's showing on the screen. And the way we've set that up is that you can give that access to individuals who are not level 5 users as well. This was something that came up when the feature first rolled out last year, MaxFest. Some folks pointed out that the people who do hazing, deal with hazing issues on their campus and would be most knowledgeable about what to include in this report are not necessarily administrators of Maxient, maybe level 4 or level 3 users. You do have the ability to grant them that access just the same. So one thing I want to mention here before we go and talk with David about some items in RealResponse is to reemphasize what we are trying to be here in the Maxient world. For those of you on this call, is a turnkey solution for compliance on this. So even if you don't have Tulane or Alabama's IT resources, or maybe you don't have any hazing incidents to disclose, you still have a requirement to have this report out there, and you have the ability to have a professional looking report on your website in a matter of minutes and be in compliance. So that's kind of what we want to point out to you. You can have it look, I won't say every bit as good as what Alabama and Tulane have out there, but pretty darn close, really with just a few clicks from within the software. And all the more, if you have no hazing issues, if you have nothing to disclose on there, you can have that report out there, be in compliance with the law, and it's very cleanly presented for your campus community and anyone who may be interested in what's going on there. So, transparency here, as we're talking about, is kind of one part of the equation. What we're going to do now is look at how campuses can kind of proactively gather information for things that may ultimately end up on this report. For that, I'm going to kick it over to my friend David.
Thanks, Aaron. My turn to share the screen. All right, I want everyone on the call to do a self-reflection at their respective institutions and think about the challenges that you all experience through the hazing reporting and investigation process. Some of you all may say, we don't feel like we're getting the reports. Stuff comes out of nowhere and it blindsides us and we find out about it and we're having to react after it's already happened. And some of you all might say, we get tidbits. Erica alluded to this earlier. We might get a Maxient report or some other means with 1 or 2 sentences, and then we have to investigate it. And oftentimes we run into a dead end. So we're really trying and seeing a lot of success with solving those 2 challenges, making it easier for students and others to be able to report, but then making it more efficient for people like you on this call to investigate these things when they do come through. Some of you might heard about RealResponse in the past and excited to update you on some new features that we've developed recently that makes your job easier as you're trying to go about the process of investigating when these things do come through. In case you're not familiar with RealResponse, I'll give you a quick overview. This is how we solve the challenge of making it easier for people to be able to report, allowing them to use communication channels that they're already using on a day-to-day basis, probably an hour to hourly basis, right? Texting, WhatsApp, email, etc. Texting is without a doubt where we see the lion's share of the use of reporting because it's quick, it's efficient, it's fast. So Todd talked about their text UAX system that they have set up. That's a phone number, so someone can text into that. They don't have their phone number attached to it when the report is sent in, so it creates that ease and confidentiality. But it is a two-way messaging platform, so they have the ability to follow up with the person, ask further questions, point to resources, all the while that person so chooses to remain anonymous. We had one institution that told us when they went live with RealResponse, historically 9 times out of 10, when they received a hazing report, they couldn't do anything with it. But the first time they received it through our platform, they could go back to the person, ask for pictures and videos and details, and they ended up creating an over 10-page document. So when they went and met with this specific chapter, it wasn't the traditional conversation of, we received allegations of hazing, and they not surprisingly deny and say, no, it was a study group or whatever the excuse was. It was, guys, let's cut to the chase. We know this happened. Here are the details. So we want to make the reporting process more efficient when these things come through. And as you can see here, it is a two-way communication platform. So the left side is that reporter's view, right? They're operating from their phone. They're not having to download an app or go to a new web page or, God forbid, pick up the phone and call a hotline. People are changing, right? The ways that folks like to communicate has evolved forever. But the right side is the view of RealResponse. So as you can see here, once this report comes in, you can follow up with the person, ask questions, permission and users that need to be a part of the thread, and then ultimately send a Maxient, which we'll get to in just a second. So this is how reports are received and how they're followed up on. What I want to put a spotlight on as well, though, is the investigative side of things. And this is the new feature that I alluded to earlier. I know many of you probably have many different ways that you do investigations right now. Todd alluded to the Qualtrics survey that has historically been done, where you just send out a generic survey and hope that people participate. We hear that a lot. Others might rely on in-person meetings and Zoom calls and things like that. The challenge is in those scenarios, especially if it's an in-person or a Zoom call, you're expecting the person to communicate right then and there. And this generation has just changed a lot in the last 10 years. I think we can all agree with that, where if I'm talking to Erica in her office one-on-one, I feel an incredible amount of pressure to get my answer right then and there. And as a result, I might just clam up and not give all the details. But if it's through a technology like ours, I have the opportunity to type up my response, and I can think about it for a little bit, and I can edit it. And rather than being in her office, I'm in my dorm room or on my couch watching Netflix. We're allowing people to communicate on their own time, which again ultimately builds out that trust. So a feature that we're already seeing a lot of success with, and Todd alluded to this earlier, is our campaigns feature, which allows you all to be proactive when you catch wind of a hazing allegation. So this might be obviously through a response. It could be through Maxient. It could be someone created an alias email and sent you something or slipped the letter under your door, right? You can find out about stuff through a number of different ways, but the investigative process is where we're focusing on now. So through RealResponse, you have the ability to set up a campaign. How this works is you would put what we would call verified users into the platform. You would upload them with their first name and their last name and their email if you have it and their cell phone if you have it. You could break it out by group. So Alabama, for example, has all their chapters in the system. It's amazing, Todd, 14,000 members of your Greek community, right? So you can send campaigns to that respective audience and obviously broken out by groups. And this is a good screenshot of how that process works. So you can set up a campaign, you can give it a name, you can designate the users that you want it to go to. I want it to go to all of our Greek community. In that example, it could be just something like an educational email or a welcome back or we're starting rush or whatever you want to do. You can specify the date that you want to send it, who it comes from, the email subject, the email body, and what the text message says as well. And then this is the example over here on the right of all the various campaigns that have been sent. Where this becomes especially useful is if you want to do a campaign specific to an investigation. Rather than doing a proactive campaign to the entire community, maybe you go to one specific chapter, or maybe you are even more narrowly focused to just the associate members, right? They receive that email that you customize, they receive that text message that you customize with a secure link that they can click on. Right here is where they would click on it on an email, right here is where they click on it on a text message. Once they click on that, it's going to bring them into the portal. This is messaging that you all would customize as well. So I'll read this to you. And obviously this very fictitious example, Springfield University. I hope there's not a Springfield University on this call. If there is, that's just a coincidence. But as you can see here, Example University, Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life deeply cares about the health and safety of our students. Recently, We receive concerns about the health and safety of this chapter. Our hope is to gain insight into your experience so we can best support you in having a positive and safe experience. Please share your insights anonymously through our RealResponse portal. Your messages will be confidential and are essential in helping us address any concerns. So now we put the ball in the court of these people and we're allowing them to communicate on their own time and when they feel comfortable, right? So someone could type up their response. Thank you so much for reaching out. I'd like to anonymously share more information about the incident that happened over the weekend. They click send. You're not going to know where it came from, but you will know which campaign it's associated with, right? So I did a campaign to this entire chapter. I know it's one of those, however many members that are associated with that. You would receive it and then have the ability to follow up with that person. You saw this view earlier. This is another view. It's a secure dialogue. So the person remains completely confidential, but you have the ability to follow up with the person, ask specific examples. Who was involved? When did this happen? As you can see down here, they're doing exactly that. It happened at 2 a.m. on Friday. We were being blindfolded, taken to a remote field behind the chapter house, etc. So again, this happens. This event has happened, and through our system, you're allowed to have a secure way to continue the conversation, allow people to communicate on their own time. And what we've seen so often as a result of building that trust and giving them a way to communicate that's not only familiar but trusted, they're more likely to bring forward those details. And the details that we've heard from some of our partner schools, and to be clear, we don't see this information. We do remain as that third-party conduit. You all are the ones that are receiving it and responding back to it. So there is a lot of security in place, but oftentimes people are sending in evidence like pictures and videos. So that could be a picture or a video that they actually took with their personal phone, which is not surprising in today's world where everyone brings out their phone as soon as something happens to film it. We've oftentimes heard too, it's filming on somebody else's phone. So maybe somebody else captured it and they're filming it, or maybe it's a screenshot of something they saw on social media or a social media post. But again, all the while this person so chooses to remain anonymous. So just circling back to what I said earlier, the goal is making it easier for them to report, allowing them to use communication channels they're familiar with, text, WhatsApp, etc. But once you are receiving it, making it easier to follow up. And if there is an investigation you want to conduct, rather than just sending out a generic survey link or relying on in-person meetings, Zoom calls, etc., being more proactive where you give them that opportunity to be able to click, as you can see here, fill out the information, and then have the ability to follow up with them afterwards. And what's great is all of these campaigns will be logged to a student's profile. I'll never forget when I had someone come up to me and say, RealResponse saved us from a lawsuit. And my interest was obviously piqued quickly. And I said, what happened? And we said, we had someone raise claims of abuse, harassment, discrimination, hazing, you name it. And we showed the opposing counsel, number one, that RealResponse existed. But number two, we showed them how often they were made aware of this platform and the opportunity to come forward. So not suggesting you should do these campaigns from a CYA perspective, but it is helpful to have a very good record of we gave all of these members a way to come forward and a very secure and confidential way to come forward. And here's the full audit that shows that, right? The date and time that we sent these campaigns out, who sent it, what the information was, et cetera, et cetera. So the goal is risk mitigation as much as possible and putting you all in a position to be able to protect the integrity of the institution along with the health and safety of your students as well. And truly an honor to be associated with Maxient. Erica, I remember the call vividly when you said you guys need to integrate with Maxient, and was excited about the opportunity to get to know Aaron and integrate with Maxient. So the goal is RealResponse becomes that intake method for anonymous reports. RealResponse becomes that investigative platform for getting the details that you need to ultimately transform it into a case, which you can do seamlessly from our system. So you click a button, send to Maxient. You can specify the form that you want it to go to. The layout ID will automatically mirror whatever you have in Maxient here as well. So you can specify the form that you want it to go to. Do you want the attachments included as well? So the pictures, the videos, the things I alluded to earlier, or the internal notes, you press send. It goes to Maxient as a pending IR, and then within Maxient, you can direct it to an existing case or create a new case out of it too. And then all the details would be summarized in a PDF as well. So just wanting to close the loop, not have fragmented systems and make it easier for you to be able to pass off and then ultimately manage the case with Maxient, and then ultimately leading to the transparency report, perhaps, which is what we talked about earlier as well. So this is a very quick overview. Recognize that there's probably a lot of stakeholders at your various institutions that may want to look at this. Happy to take them through a more detailed demonstration. We'll also be at ASCA in a few weeks if any of you guys would be there, and happy to talk on site. I heard we're hosting a reception one night too, so this is the informal invitation that everybody here can come as well to that, but there will be more details to come on that soon as well.
Hey, thanks, David. And I mean, I'm not here to necessarily promote this, but one of the things I love about this integration is that this does show how the two products can work pretty seamlessly together because it's really it's meeting a need that exists out there that we don't provide. Maxient has been a great way to get reports through the web for many years, but the anonymous piece, the ability to go back and forth with an anonymous reporter really shines in situations like this. And I love the way that your team has built this integration so that that information can be gathered and then seamlessly passed off into Maxient when it's ready to go into the more full case management investigation piece. So kudos to you all for how you've met the need sort of where our product leaves off there. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We've been answering questions as they've come through here. Certainly, it's a good opportunity. If you have any additional questions, please, now's a great time to speak up. Put them in the Q&A while we are all here. We'd love to address them for you. We will also probably not have, yeah, so one thing we're going to talk about here is just places where you can get more information from us and find us over the coming months. David mentioned ASCA. So we will be there as well. Maxient is always at ASCA. That's coming up back on the East Coast this year. So in Washington, D.C., next month, starting February 11th, I believe, through the 14th. Also, our conference, our annual user conference, MaxFest, kicks off June 22nd in Austin, Texas this year. So we're excited about that. I know that our team was working on reviewing program proposals today. The schedule is coming together very nice and registrations are quite strong for this. So if you're interested in coming, now is the time to get registered for that conference and start making your plans to see us in Texas. In the months in between, Maxient has started doing a series called Knowledge Drops. And these are brief, small topical areas that we cover in the middle of the day on Tuesdays and Thursdays, typically like a 10-15 minute presentation, just enough to get you fluent with a given topic. And we've got a whole schedule of those. We've already done the first few of this semester. You can locate more information about those in our help forum in Maxient. That's in the upper right-hand corner of your Maxient screen. Going to click on the help question mark there. Also, sometimes we do post those things as events as well. But go into the help forum, just do the search for the words knowledge drops, and you'll get the calendar of those. Also, we have another boot camp training opportunity, a couple of boot camp training opportunities coming up. We did boot camp a few weeks ago virtually, and we will be rescreening that. I believe the next one is February 18th, and then there's another one after that. Again, information on this is in the Maxient help forum, just in the upper right corner of your screen. So not seeing any Q&A coming through right now. I think that means we did a good job. I'll take it that way. We answered the pressing questions you had. One thing we are going to do, just want to say goodbye to everybody because we won't get a chance to say goodbye when the last poll question comes up. You're going to see a poll question asking if there's anything we can provide you more information on. Maybe you don't feel comfortable asking it on the webinar at the moment, or it comes to you in the next few minutes after we close this thing down. The poll question is going to say, let us know if we can reach out to you directly to learn more about Maxient's CHTR feature, RealResponse's anonymous reporting and investigations, or both. So on behalf of everybody on the call, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We hope it was well spent and that you picked up some cool tips, and we will look forward to seeing you at the conferences. Have a great semester, everybody. Bye-bye.